우리는 이스라엘을 하나님께서 선택하신 나라, 그리고 또 이스라엘 백성을 하나님께서 선택한 민족으로 알고 있죠. 그래서 성경의 구약과 신약 모두 이스라엘에서 일어난 일들을 기록하고 있고, 또 예수님도 이스라엘의 유대인의 모습으로 오셨습니다. 뿐만 아니라 제자들도 역시 모두 이스라엘의 유대인들이었죠. 전 세계는 미국과 중국, 러시아 같은 이런 큰 나라들도 있고 다른 나라들도 많이 있는데, 그리고 전 세계는 또 참 수많은 민족도 있는데 왜 하필이면 하나님은 이스라엘이라는 나라를 선택하신 것일까요? 성경에서 보면 이스라엘 백성들이 400년 동안이나 애굽에서 종살이를 하고 있을 때 모세를 통해서 그곳에서 탈출하게 해 주셨음에도 불구하고, 광야에서 유대인들은 불평불만만 늘어놓고 그러다가 또 우상을 섬기기까지 하는 죄를 저질렀음에도 불구하고 하나님의 입장에서 보면 참 속상하고 배신감까지 느끼실 만한데, 그런데도 끝까지 이스라엘 백성들을 가나안으로 들어가게 하시고, 또 아브라함을 통해서 너를 축복하는 자는 축복하고 너를 저주하는 자는 내가 저주하겠다, 이렇게까지 하셨습니다. 왜 하나님께서는 이스라엘 민족을 택하셨을까요? 왜 하나님은 이스라엘을 그렇게도 좋아하셨을까요? 오늘은 좀 그런 부분에 대해서 이야기를 좀 나눠보려고 하는데요. 오늘 이야기를 나눌 이분이 현재 대표로 있는 그 단체 이름도 Chosen People Ministry, 번역하면 선택받은 민족 선교회, 유대인들 중에서도 예수를 믿는 메시아닉 유대인들의 선교 단체라고 하죠. Chosen People Ministry의 대표이신 글레이저 박사님을 모시고 오늘 그런 이야기를 좀 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. 박사님 어서 오십시오. 고맙습니다.
Shalom, good to be here.
이번에도 한국에 오셔서 이스라엘 관련 선교 컨퍼런스도 하시고 또 포럼까지 하셨습니다. 모든 행사를 마치신 소감이 좀 어떻습니까?
We did. We had a wonderful conference with Cedar International Ministries, which is part of Chosen People Global Ministries in Korea. And we had over 200 people at a wonderful local church. And we focused on Israel and the past, present, and future of Israel. We studied the scriptures together. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. And then we did a conference at Sarang Church on which was part of the Israel Forum, used to be the Israel Theological Forum. And last time I was here, I participated in the first Israel Theological Forum. This was the sixth. And so there's been quite a bit of growth. Myself and Eris Sora from One for Israel. It was a wonderful conference.
박사님께서 느끼시기에 이번에 그 컨퍼런스와 이 포럼을 진행하시는 동안 그 강의를 듣는 한국 크리스천들의 반응은 좀 어떤 것 같습니까?
Well, the audience, let's face it, they were there because they were interested in the topic. So it was a pleasure for me because I didn't feel I needed to persuade people to love Israel and to love the Jewish people. Maybe a few people were on the fence. But I felt that for the most part, people were already there, and I had the wonderful privilege of giving them biblical foundations and further ammunition to make the case for why God wants Christians to be interested in Israel and the Jewish people. So it was actually a very pleasant experience. In some ways, the brothers and sisters here are more enthusiastic than some of the Christians in the United States. So I was very encouraged.
제가 조금 전에 Chosen People Ministry의 대표라고 이렇게 제가 소개해드렸는데, Chosen People Ministry 어떤 곳인지 좀 소개를 해주시죠.
We are celebrating our 125th year as a ministry. And so we started Chosen People Ministries in 1894. It began when a rabbi from Hungary, Leopold Kohn, came to the United States and heard the gospel in Yiddish. And it was a young Polish Presbyterian preacher on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And Rabbi Cohen came to faith in Jesus the Messiah, immediately began sharing the gospel with his Jewish people, helping them. And Chosen People over the years has grown. We're now in 19 countries, 25 cities in North America, and we have a couple of hundred staff globally in our partnership. And we continue to reach Jewish people with the good news of Yeshua. Our main purpose as a ministry is to tell Jewish people about the Messiah, Yeshua, and then to disciple those who come to faith. We also do a lot of relief work. For example, in Israel, we work with Holocaust survivors and help them greatly. But our main work is to evangelize and disciple Jewish people and to help our brothers and sisters in Christ whether they're in Korea or the United States, to learn how to share the gospel with Jewish people and to provide them with good materials so that they can be more effective in sharing the gospel.
자, 그럼 이제 제가 조금 전에 오프닝 멘트 때 그 이스라엘은 선택받은 나라, 선택받은 민족이라고 이제 이야기했는데 창세기 12장에 보면은 하나님께서 아브라함에게 말씀하시되 너는 너의 고향과 친척과 아버지 집을 떠나 내가 네게 보여줄 땅으로 가라. 보통 이제 우리가 이스라엘을 이제 하나님께서 선택하셨다라는 이야기를 할 때 하나님께서 아브라함을 향한 부르심 이것 때문에 이제 이스라엘을 이제 하나님께서 선택하셨다 이렇게 이야기를 하는데 하나님께서 아브라함을 굳이 선택하신 이유는 뭘까요? 예를 들어서 아브라함의 동생 나홀도 있고 또 아브라함의 아버지 데라도 있는데 굳이 하나님께서 이렇게 아브라함에게 매력을 느끼신 특별한 이유가 있을까요?
This is a question that many people ask and is a great question, and it's actually a question that the rabbis talk about in the Talmud and other rabbinic writings. There's a lot on Abraham, almost as much as there is on Moses. And so Jewish people are fascinated with Abraham and always have been. And the question is, why did God choose Abram? From one perspective, it's a little easy to understand if you trace from Genesis 3:15, the first messianic prophecy in the Bible, where God says to Adam and Eve that there will be enmity between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman, and one day the seed of the woman will crush the head of the seed of the serpent. And so with the first sin came the first prophecy of hope and redemption. And then, of course, we had the flood. In Genesis chapter 9, you see that after the flood, you see that the promised line of redemption would not go through Japheth, would not go through Canaan, but would go through Shem. And so as you progress towards Genesis 12, you see at the end of Genesis 11 that Abram's father, Terah, was a descendant of Shem. So we know that one of the reasons God probably chose Abram is that he was from the correct lineage. He was from the tribe of Shem. And I think that that's very important. The rest of it, we don't know why he chose Abram. There's a great story that the rabbis tell. It's a very humorous story. Abram's father, Terah, made idols. And he taught Abram to make idols. One day, Terah went out from the idol-making shop. This is the rabbis, not the Bible. So Terah went out to do an errand and left young Abram alone in the idol-making shop. And so Abram took a hammer and he began smashing all the idols. And then he left one idol intact. And he took the hammer and put it into the hands of the one idol. And then when Terah came back from his errand, he said, Abram, who did this? And Abram said, I don't know, Father. Ask him. The rabbis tell that story to teach two lessons. One, to show the foolishness of idolatry. And they actually quote from Isaiah in that, where one day you cut down a tree and you use the wood for fire. Then the next thing you do is you create an idol and you worship the idol that came from the same tree. So it's the futility and foolishness of idolatry. But the rabbis also tell this story to show that God made the right choice. He picked the right person, Abram, and that he was a righteous young man, and that's why God chose him as well. So what really happened? We don't know. We'll have to ask Abram when we see him.
아브라함이 이제 하나님한테 이렇게 이제 선택을 받으면서 아브라함의 후손 유대인들이 선택받은 민족이 되면은 선택을 받았다라는 것은 동시에 선택받지 못한 민족, 선택받지 못한 사람들도 있다라는 것인데, 그럼 아브라함으로 인해서 이제 이방인이 구별이 되는 그런 겁니까?
Yes and no. I do believe that the human race was all the same. And then with the choosing of Abram, we have the chosen people, the Hebrews, the Jews. And then we also have the other group of people, the Gentiles. when God says to Abram, I will bless those who bless thee and curse those who curse thee, and through you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. God is reaffirming that division now, because there are people who need to be blessed and a people who should do the blessing. And then there's a group of people who will then be the blessing to the nations of the world. So there's obviously now two groups. However, there's one thing that should not be missed, and that is the Jewish people were chosen for a purpose. They were chosen to bless the nations. That was the mission. That was the calling of the Jewish people. They were to be Or HaGoyim. They were to be a light to the nations, to reveal the one true God to the nations of the world, a bridge of redemption. But let's not forget that it's not as if God chose the Jewish people out of all the other peoples of the earth. The Jewish people didn't exist. So God took an elderly couple and gave them a miraculous child, Isaac. And it was through this miraculous birth and this miraculous child that the Jewish people came into existence. So it's important to understand, as I'm sure you know, that the Jewish people were not only chosen to be a blessing, but they were created by God. So when God wanted to bring His message to humanity, He created His own people.
그럼 유대인이 선택받은 민족이라고 하면은 선택받지 않은 이방인들 입장에서 그럼 왜 우리는 선택받지 못했지? 우리가 도대체 유대인들보다 못한 게 뭐가 있을까? 이러면서 기분 나빠하고 불편해할 수도 있어요. 이 부분에 대해서는 뭐라고 설명하실 수 있겠습니까?
You know, there's a great movie called Fiddler on the Roof. And there's one scene in Fiddler on the Roof which I think explains the Jewish understanding of being chosen. Reb Tevye, the main character in the movie, the milkman, with the daughters who wouldn't marry the people he told them to marry. And so one day, the captain of the Ukrainian army gets drunk. And he finds Tevye, who he thinks is his friend. And he tells Tevye, drink some vodka. And of course, Tevye makes believe he drinks the vodka and doesn't drink the vodka because he knows something not very good is about to happen. And so the drunk Ukrainian captain says, Tevye, we like you, we think you're good, but pretty soon the Cossacks are going to come in and they're going to throw all of you out of Anatevka and send you on your way out of Russia. And Tevye, of course, is devastated. But he doesn't show that he's devastated. He makes believe he's drunk, he laughs, and so on. And he goes off to the side, the captain leaves, and there's a very beautiful moment with Tevye. He looks up to heaven and he says, Lord, next time, choose somebody else. And that's the Jewish attitude actually towards being chosen. Being chosen is never a matter of privilege. It's actually a matter of obligation. God chose us not to be self-serving, but God chose us to be a light to the nations. We didn't do anything to deserve to be chosen. God just decided to create us, and we are called to take on this obligation of being a light to the nations. Unfortunately, no matter how well this has been explained in history, no matter how humble Jewish people are in explaining this, it has been the basis for a lot of anti-Semitism forever, because the nations are sometimes angry at Israel for believing that they are chosen, even though they didn't choose themselves. God chose them.
그럼 우리 이방인들은 유대인들처럼 하나님한테 선택받지 못했다라고 해서 이렇게 비관하거나 하나님한테 불평불만하거나 그럴 필요는 없는 거죠.
Do Gentiles need to complain about not being chosen? Absolutely not. Not only that, the rest of the Bible points out that a day is coming when in Isaiah, where the prophet speaks about Egypt and Syria and Israel walking down the highway in the future kingdom together, there is a great future for the nations that bow the knee to the Jewish Messiah. And there's a great future for Israel when Israel humbles herself before the Jewish Messiah. And so there's a great future for all the peoples of the earth who follow the Messiah, whether they be Jews or Gentiles. That's something to be happy about.
박사님도 유대인이시니까 여쭤보겠는데 혹시 그 유대인들이 우리 민족은 하나님으로부터 선택받은 민족이다 이런 생각 때문에 혹시 우월감을 갖고 있거나 또는 교만하거나 자만심을 갖고 있는 유대인들도 혹시 보셨습니까?
I think to really understand this, because I was raised in a more Orthodox Jewish home. I live in New York City. I live among hundreds of thousands of Haredim, ultra-Orthodox Jews. And if anybody would be tempted to pride about being Jewish, it would be the Haredim, those who are ultra-Orthodox. But when you get to really know the ultra-Orthodox, it's really not quite pride. But there are two things that can be read as pride, but they're not really pride. Number one, they believe God wants them to be separate from the nations. And so it's this separation that the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox Jews, express by living among themselves. Not sometimes people get upset where I met an Orthodox Jew and they wouldn't even talk to me. Well, they're so arrogant. Well, it's not arrogance, really. It's a desire to remain separate from the nations, from the Gentiles. That is their understanding. Number two, when it comes to being chosen, actually, because of the level of persecution that Jewish people have experienced, they have reinterpreted the call of God to be separate and to be chosen as a call of God to survive, because they want to see the prophetic word come true, and they feel they have a role in that. And so they stay separate from the world, and they do everything they can to survive as a people. So this desire to stay apart, this desire to survive, can oftentimes be read as arrogance, when it's not truly arrogant. I'm not saying that an Orthodox Jew can't be arrogant any more than a secular Jew can be arrogant. But I don't think it's really arrogance. I think it's these other factors.
유대인들이 하나님으로부터 선택받은 민족이라는 것 때문에 물론 자부심도 있겠지만 동시에 저는 저희 집에서 장남인데 그러다 보니까 때로는 장남이 부담스러울 때도 있습니다. 왜냐하면 책임져야 할 부분도 있고 또 뭐 의무감도 있어야 되고 그런 부분에서 유대인들이 왜 굳이 하나님이 우리를 선택하셨을까? 그런 거에 대해서 혹시 이렇게 부담감을 느끼거나 그런 사람들도 있습니까?
Let me be very honest with you about answering that very good question, because I'm a firstborn man also. And as a Jewish man with two younger sisters, I also have a lot of responsibility, so I understand the question. I would say that the current Haredim think very little, actually, about the Gentiles. I think they're more concerned about staying separate than being a light. And that's the honest truth. So I don't think it's dislike. I think also that Jewish people, again, because of persecution, are very suspicious also of the Gentiles and of the nations. And so I think that they're very concerned about it because of the terrible history between Jews and Christians, medieval period all the way through the Holocaust. Because of that, I think that it's very difficult for a very religious Jewish person who would believe these things in the Bible, that they were to be a light to the nations. Secular Jews don't even understand that, so it's not an issue. But I think that they would be more suspicious of the nations than feeling a burden or obligation to help the nations. They might see that as something in the future, but not something that they're supposed to be responsible for right now. They just know that they didn't do anything to deserve being chosen. And that's the sense of obligation, that's the sense of humility. But in terms of really thinking about the burden of helping Gentiles by being a light to them today, that's not part of Jewish culture.
하나님께서 굳이 이 아브라함에게 가나안 땅으로 가라고 하신 특별한 이유, 지리적으로 그쪽을 특별히 이렇게 선택하신 이유는 뭘까요?
The other joke is, it may have been Golda Meir, why the land of Israel? And Golda Meir said, it wasn't our choice. We didn't want to come here. Who would go to the only place in the Middle East that doesn't have oil? You know, Israel was a very unlikely place for them to go. It was a good place for Abram. It seems that he had room for his herds, and they were able to give land to Lot. And so there are some practical reasons. It may have been not that far from his original home. And so maybe it was just a close-by territory that was able to sustain Abram's livelihood. Some people say that. But what we really understand is from Genesis 15. And in Genesis 15, God gives Abram these boundaries. And it's supposed to go further north into Syria and further south into Egypt. So the boundaries today are not what the boundaries are as described by God in Genesis 15, when Abraham, if you remember, was asleep and the animals were cut in half and the torch and the pot went through forming a covenant, showing that Abram was asleep, God made the covenant, which indicated that the fulfillment of the promise depended upon God and not Abram.
박사님은 미국 뉴욕에서 사시는 분인데, 뭐 뉴욕이면 뭐 전 세계에서 가장 문명화된 그런 도시인데, 그 뉴욕에서 사시는 분이 이스라엘을 방문하면 어떻습니까? 그래도 이스라엘이 좋습니까? 아니면 그래도 나는 뉴욕에서 살다가 뉴욕은 잠시 방문만 했으면 좋겠다, 이런 생각이 드시나요? 아니면 더 이스라엘이 좋습니까? 뉴욕하고 이스라엘하고 굳이 비교하자면 어디가 더 편하십니까?
Well, I find that Jerusalem is a city that's, for me, is magical. It's historic, it's beautiful, it's spiritual. I love the old city. I go there. I've been there many, many, many times. I've gone 2 or 3 times a year for the last 30 years. And so I love Israel. And I think that Jerusalem's wonderful. I think that Galilee is a very sleepy area. That's a nice place for a little vacation. And I have to be honest, I really dislike Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, to me, is the worst of New York in Hebrew. And so when some people say to me, do you think that this is the promised land, that God brought the Jewish people back to the promised land, and this is the fulfillment of prophecy? I say, I sure hope not. Because if the promised land is going to be filled with cities like Tel Aviv, then I don't know if I want to go there. And God, in Ezekiel 36, said that he would bring the Jewish people back in unbelief. They would be like dry bones in the desert. And that at the appropriate time, the wind of God, the Spirit of God, Ruach, would blow through on these bones, and they would start coming together and grow sinews and flesh, and they would live. So I believe that modern Israel is the fulfillment of prophecy, because God said in Ezekiel 36, he would bring the Jewish people back in unbelief. But then there's this beautiful verse in Ezekiel 36, that one day that Israel will be like the Garden of Eden. To me, that is just so beautiful. And it helps me look beyond Tel Aviv. And so one day, when the promises of God are fulfilled, then Israel will be like the Garden of Eden. Do I want to live in Israel? My heart's commitment is to tell Jewish people about the Messiah, Yeshua. And there are actually more people who will go to Israel to tell Jewish people about Yeshua today than will go to my home in New York City, and actually in the borough of Brooklyn. In New York City, we have 2 million Jewish people. There's no city in Israel that has 2 million Jewish people. In fact, New York has more Jewish people than combined Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. My borough, Brooklyn, has almost 1 million Jewish people, which, if you limit Tel Aviv to Tel Aviv and not go all the way out to its suburbs, we have more Jewish people in one borough of New York City than in all of Tel Aviv. So the opportunities where I live to reach Jewish people with the gospel are significant. And as much as I love Israel, and I'm usually there for over a month a year, but as much as I love Israel, I feel called of God to stay in New York City where I can reach more Jewish people for the Lord Yeshua. Chosen People has a very strong work in Israel. We work in Ramat Gan, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv. We work in Tel Aviv. We work in Jerusalem. We work in the Galilee, on the coast. We work all over the place with Holocaust survivors, with children's camps, with congregations.
창세기 15장 18절에 보면은 하나님께서 그 아브라함에게 말씀하실 때 애굽 강가에서부터 유브라데까지 너희에게 주겠다. 이렇게 이제 영토를 구체적으로 이제 지정을 해 주셨단 말입니다. 그런데 1948년에 이스라엘이라는 나라가 회복될 때 그때는 현재의 그 국토의 면적보다 훨씬 작은 그런 상태에서 나라가 시작이 됐지만 1967년에 6.1 전쟁을 통해서 이제 예루살렘도 확보하고 또 골란고원도 확보했는데 현재는 지금 골란고원에서부터 에일랏까지만 지금 이스라엘 국토로 지정이 돼 있어요. 그러면은 창세기 15장 18절에서 하나님께서 말씀하셨던 이 애굽 강가에서부터 유브라데 강까지의 그 국토의 이 영역 이것을 어떻게 상징적으로 봐야 됩니까? 아니면은 앞으로 또 이스라엘 국토가 유브라데스 강까지 그리고 나일강까지 이렇게 확장될 거라고 보시는지요?
I absolutely believe that this will be fulfilled literally. I don't take it symbolically. I believe that all of the discussions right now about dividing Israel and giving back territories and so on, people can do all they want politically. And we don't know what's going to happen because we don't know how these problems are going to be solved today. But I know about tomorrow. Tomorrow, God will keep His word, and the Jewish people will literally have that land, and they will have that land when Yeshua reigns as king in the capital, Yerushalayim, a literal Jerusalem. There is a skip from 52 to 54. And I read her Isaiah 53. I told you not to read the New Testament. That was Isaiah 53. She said, I don't care what it was. It sounded like Jesus.